question's not a technical one. It's more in the realm of the ethics and the evolution of computing. And I sit and watch what's happening around the world, and a lot of the dynamics in social change and political change depend on human actors who are no longer able to deal with the consequences of the commands that they're given by political leadership. But I have a nightmare, and the nightmare is that there'll be robots. And as robots, the impact they're having on the humans and the pain they're causing the humans will be totally irrelevant to them. Does this mean we should have a moratorium on artificial intelligence-based robotics?
I'm in very good company in that regard. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Steve Wozniak, and Stephen Hawking have all expressed tremendous existential fear about the rise of AI. I think they're wrong. That, in fact, I just tweeted about this the other day. I am not afraid. And I'm not afraid for a variety of reasons. It's a longer discussion that we can have here. But I would say that there's a group called the Institute for Future Life. Nick Bosman has led this. And I've actually signed their letter saying, yes, we must be intentional about it. What strikes me is the conversations we're beginning to have now are very much the same conversations that took place around Oppenheimer and the nuclear weapon. Because we're building this thing of incredible potential that we don't know what will happen when we unleash it. The reason I say I'm not afraid is because I'm of the mind of Rodney Brooks, who says, and I don't agree with what Kurzweil says about the singularity, but what Rodney Brooks says is that we will never see the singularity because by the time we get there, we ourselves will become partly computers. And I think, therefore, we are co-evolving over time. The danger is, and it's a phrase that my wife really invented, is that we are slowly, inevitably, irreversibly surrendering ourselves to computation. And one of the reasons we're doing the documentary is to step back and say, wait a minute, let's be intentional about it. So I fear a same kind of thing. I fear the creation of autonomous drones that kill. I have a real problem with that. And I will stand up and oppose it wherever I can. So I, as a software engineer, much like what Parnas did for the SDI, if there's a forum for it, then I will certainly push back against it so that we can be intentional. Do we ultimately fear? I think we should fear it only insofar as we ignore it. But we should not fear it if we are part of the dialogue, if we're part of the creation of it, that we are intentional about it. So I think those guys are wrong and I'm right. So, somebody else. I should say that to their face someday. That'd be a fun panel. Somebody else. There's somebody in the back too.
Martin Glintz, University of Zurich. Well, you brilliantly laid out all the challenges that we have in our field, but I was a little bit missing one point, and this is the customers who order our software and buy our software, and who eventually drive us always to the edge of what we can't do. So when you're looking back in history, if we did the stuff that we couldn't do in the 70s and we did this today, we wouldn't have any problems with developing software. And the same when you go to the 80s or to the 90s. It's always, well, seeing what computing can do creates the demand and drives us to a point where we actually have to say, well, we can't really do it. How can we solve that? Any ideas?
So you alluded to something that I put in a phrase in passing that is worth expanding upon. In our world, there is a demand pull and a technology push. So I live in an organization that really likes pushing technology, that if there's a problem, then by God, we'll have a software solution for it. I don't care what the problem is, but there's a software solution. So that's a technology push, and that's a good thing. We have to do that because we as an industry, we make things possible. There's also the demand pull, which means from the outside, people are saying, I see what's possible, let's drag it to us. So for the average person who is just out in the world, doesn't know how a computer works, they see the movies, they see what's possible, they see CSI, they whatever say, I want this kind of thing, you software people go off and do that. The good news is that we have generations now growing up in which literally they have tablets in their cribs. So they've grown up not knowing the internet never existed. They believe God created Facebook on the seventh day. And yea, verily, it was good. So it's a very different world that the digital natives are in. And that's both good and bad. Sherry Turkle, of course, speaks about that to a great degree. So I think our responsibility is we have to listen to those folks, because ultimately that's why we build things. We don't build it. How did Feynman say it? Physics is like sex. Sometimes it produces great results, but that's not why we do it. So the same thing is true from software engineering research. It's not, sometimes we expect great results. We have to expect great results. As a pragmatic software engineer, we have to listen to the outside, and we have to be driven to it. But that's why, going back to your issue, we as software engineers, I think, also have to be part of that dialogue. We have to be part of the education. We have to be out there in the world, meeting with the politicians, meeting with the policymakers, because we are giving them things, and they're asking things of us that they don't understand. Look at the rules around digital rights management. Look at the rules, look at the things around privacy and security. Look at everything around the network neutrality. These are the things for which we as software engineers need to inject ourselves in the dialogue. We have to listen. We also have to be part of the dialogue itself. Great. I'll let her sort this out. By the way, if you want to reach me, I really am amazingly accessible. I'm gbooch@us.ibm.com, so you can reach me there. And there's our website, Computing the Human Experience. So I do answer all emails.
I have a
Yes.
question. I got really inspired by your line, what you said, that think about every line of code you write will have an implication.
Yes.
And when you say that, we're kind of fighting against ourselves also, because the problem is that coming from a technical background, you tend to focus more on the micro level of things, on the technical details, and you tend to lose focus of the macro. And my question is, as a scientist, also as a software engineer professional, what is your advice to actually try to foster this macro view on things? What are the greater implications of everyday work? What do you think?
How do you foster that greater view? Be as fully wonderful a human as you can be. It sounds like a snide answer, but that's what I mean, because we build cranes. It's great. We love our technology, but ultimately we're part of that human experience. We live, we love. This is what distinguishes us. And insofar as we cling to and cherish our humanity, I think that's what will drive us to that. Think about the next line of code you write and say, my child is going to debug this. That's another mantra to put up. Good question. Be fully human is my answer to your question. Yes?
Hiva from Sweden, Chalmers. I was also very inspired by different part of your talk. But you said something about the need for studying organization and human.
Yes.
And all those issues. But I have thought about this a lot, that are we the best people to study this, or maybe people in social science or management or psychology? And what do you think about this?
We need cross-disciplinary studies, that to take a cultural anthropologist and plop them down in Tumblr's office, they won't know the right questions to ask. Similarly with sociologists. So my recommendation is you need to band yourself together with such folks and do those kinds of things. We have to educate one another.
You mean like educate ourselves on those, or
No,
like
I mean,
collaborate
I'd be,
together?
this is great. I get to sleep with my own psychologist. So that was probably a little bit too much information. So that's the cross-disciplinary studies I have done. So I can't believe I said that. Yeah. So anyway, so maybe not to that level of integration. No, you know. Next question. Stop while I'm ahead.
Yeah, I share your confidence in the future generations, the technological natives.
Yes.
But I'm also thinking that there are the technology natives, and then there's the people who pick the leftovers of their devices in the dumpsters. So can you comment on the digital divide and how that affects this future?
I'm very much worried about the digital divide, and I'm very much worried about the digital dark age, two separate things. There are a number of folks who say we shouldn't worry about how computing is changing the middle class. I'm of a different mind, that I believe that what we have done in computing is fundamentally changing the economic demographics of the world, that we are doing things that devastate the lower class employment and are beginning to nibble upon middle class. Therefore, the stuff I do further creates the digital divide. That's really frightening. We are going to have to, as a civilization, attend to within the next couple of generations the reality that we don't need as many people as we have on this world, in a way. That an individual doesn't have to do so much to produce as we did in the past. So it really begs the existential question, in the presence of the stuff we're developing, what does it mean to be human? And I don't know the answer to that. That's a dialogue we need to have. I think the immediate answer is to say that, let's accept the fact that we are making a difference. Let's not debate it like climate change. It's happening, it's real. It really, really is. And let's do something about it. I don't know what that is because I'm not a politician, but I want to be in a proper dialogue with the folks who can make those policies. So this is why I speak of it as a responsibility, that we have to talk to the folks in industry, in the world, because we are doing things that are going to impact them profoundly. And I don't know what the future is. I just hope there are brighter minds that we can bring to the bear. I will say, that being said, it sounds frightening, but as a study of history suggests, there have been many periods in human nature that we have seen even more tremendous change. I have great confidence in the ability of the human spirit to adapt. It will be painful. There will be certainly lots of personal cases that are tragic, but I believe we'll go on. And it will be a struggle. It will be an opportunity. It'll be a wonderful journey. Yes, somebody else.
Grady, most fields of science and engineering grow with advances in mathematics and the ability to measure. And it seems like we're in the infancy of trying to measure intellectual artifacts.
Yes.
Psychologists failed trying to measure the readability because they had their version of cyclomatic complexity, but it was the semantics of what was in the paragraph that was important.
Yes.
Do you see any advances that would help us, because this is clearly an intellectual artifact? You see anything coming along?
I do, but I'm also probably very pragmatically an engineer, which is of the maxim of if it works, it's useful. In the sense that if it does something right for me, mathematical theory or not behind it, then I'm going to use it as an engineer. And I think that's what's fueled a lot of the stuff that we see right now. But as software becomes, we move into these dominant designs, we move into these places where we as humans, we as organizations, we as civilizations depend upon it, then I think we have to have a greater degree of trust in our systems. So for me, the interesting metric to worry about is, what can I do to increase the level of trust in my systems? And therefore that says, yes, there are pieces that I'd desperately love to have provably correct. I would love to have some measures that allow me to look at a system and decide what should I fix, what should I not, which are more economic kinds of things. So short answer is, yeah, I think measurements would help, and I can think of some specific ones that would help the individual developer and the teams of developers. But right now we are living in this such rich primordial soup of stuff that there's just so much we can build without even having to measure it. So I wish I could say more and be more, more confident in that, but right now that's not the limiting factor for me. Great question. Last question. Yes.
David Socia, University of Washington, Bothell. Given the scale of where we're going, how important do you think it is for education and for industry to get deep into the spirituality of software engineering?
Fascinating. Leibniz, when he designed or came up with the notion of the binary number system, he was a deeply religious man, and he was also influenced by the I Ching, and therefore was a man who was interested in dualities. And one of the reasons he formulated binary numbers was the realization that 1 is a perfect number and therefore represents God. 0, emptiness, the void, represents chaos and the devil. And so part of the very foundations of our binary number systems have a spiritual foundation to them. In fact, as I look at running Windows, sometimes you can see the battle of good and evil playing out right before your very eyes. You ask a wonderful question. We did a whole lecture on that very topic. What was the title of it? Deus Ex Machina. So if you go to computingthehumanexperience.com, this is one of the 5 lectures that I've now done at the Computer History Museum. And we did it on that very topic, exploring the coevolution of computing and spirituality. Belief Amongst the Bits. It was one of those titles. You'll find it there. The short answer is that, well, this opens up lots of interesting questions, but as I said, on the one hand, I believe that the mind is computable. I'm also a very spiritual guy, probably more so in the spiritual nature of a Spinoza, if you want to put it that way, because I very much believe in the nature of the awe of the universe and the importance of awe and wonder. I would give the short answer to the question to say that insofar as our spirituality deals with what it means to be mortal and what it means to be human, certainly we must consider those aspects because we were building systems that change the meaning or cause us to question what it means to be mortal. And I think we need that kind of dialogue for us. If I eliminate all the things I need to do as a human, if I don't have to build anything, if I don't have to work, if I don't have to feed myself, who am I? And I think ultimately the existential question for software engineering is that. What does it mean to be human? Thank you all very much. This has been wonderful. Could you guys sign this for me? Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Went well? Good. Glad I did. Yeah, you're right. I knocked yourself. Please, please do. You bet.